And let me put... So, good morning. We're going to continue with our lessons. We're still working on lesson 6. Lesson 6 is probably one of the hardest lessons because it's in this lesson is where we're building and styling the foundation for the web page, for all the web pages that we're creating on our website in the lessons. And it's it has the basic look and feel and structure for all the subsequent pages. The only thing more that we will be doing is showing in the other lessons is showing you different ways of adding content. Excuse me. So we're gonna, where we left off is we took the our sides and we styled the bars, excuse me, top and bottom. We also added some semantic content over to the left. Anytime you add a quotation, you should use the block quote along with a cite tag associated with it. And if you want to style it differently as we did, then that's what you do. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add some basic content to the main article. So I have article selected here in my DOM. I'm going to go ahead and, you can see that that's assigned there. It's clicked by clicking on the DOM. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit the plus sign here, and I'm going to add insert a child element. By default, it wants to add a div, but instead I'm going to go ahead and put H2. I'm going to make an H2 tag. I'm going to hit return. And you can see it just added an H2 tag. So I'm going to go ahead and double click inside it. Now that you'll see that the orange bounding box appears, now I can go ahead and edit that text. And they want us to put insert main content here. Or main heading, I should say, I'm sorry. So again, we have another H2 tag. We have several H2 tags. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit the return key. And as soon as I do that, notice that it adds, it should add, let me go ahead and I'm going to bring up the split view and make sure that it's adding it. It should have, yeah, it didn't do it. So I don't want a break. Notice it has a break. I don't want a break. A break allows you to go to the next line. But instead, what I want under main heading 2, right after that, I'm going to go ahead and I'll put it in myself. So okay. I don't know why we have an opening and closing tag for the div there. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. That shouldn't be there. There we go. So I'm just going to do it by hand. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a paragraph tag. So left caret P, right caret, and then if I put the left caret and I put the backslash, it automatically adds the closing tag. Now I can go ahead and I can say insert subheading here. I'm just going to do it in the code view. Let's come back up here and it should be adding it. There we go. Now I'll go ahead and I'll click here. Let me see if it will, if I click right after this, I had it. Okay. Let me go ahead and hit the return key and see if it adds another paragraph tag by default. And it did. That was what it was supposed to do after inserting the main heading. Notice that I have a break space up here that I don't want. I don't know why that's there. Okay, so the same thing with it automatically adds that. And we're going to say insert content here. So these are just placeholders. There we go. So we've added some content to our main article. The next thing that we're going to do now is we're going to assign to the right aside a custom tag. Before we're going to go ahead and we're going to add to this right aside, we're going to add a specific class to it. So what I want to do is I can either select it from the DOM or I can try to select it from here. Okay, I'm going to just click in here. You can see that I don't want the editing to be selected. If I click on the little blue box, notice that it highlights in blue. It's a little bit different. And what I want to do is I want to create a custom class for this now. So with the aside selected with column small 4 visible, I'm going to go ahead and hit the plus sign here. And what I want to do is I want to put the period or dot, and I want to put sidebar 2. And I don't want a space between sidebar and 2. I just want it all one thing, and hit the return key. Okay. And that should do it. Let's go back. Let's see if it added it. There we go. So I have sidebar 2. So I've added a custom class to that. And now I can proceed to add elements to this. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to add a background color and make it that lime green that we can see over here in our right here. Notice that we have that lime green background color that separates this aside from this one. Don't have to do that, but they're just simply showing us how to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the right aside. Okay. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add, I'm sorry for the little blinks. I've got antivirus stuff going on here. Let's see, make sure that my mind was distracted here. I have the right aside selected. Damn, it's noisy. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert an H2 heading first. So within here, I can do it, click inside, and I can type inside there. And you'll notice that we have in the code view, it says aside class small column sidebar 2. Well, I'm going to put inside here an H2 tag. So again, we had an H2 tag here, we have an H2 tag here, and all three of these will be different than one another. So I'm going to put in an H2 tag here. So I'm just going to do it by hand. Come on. I'll take away that space and put in a left caret, and I'm going to put in H2. Okay, right caret, then a left caret, and then when I hit the right, the backslash, I have an H2 tag. So now I can go ahead here and I can put in insert sidebar heading here. So if I put in insert, and you can see that I'm just doing it from the code view. Sometimes it's easier. Sidebar heading here. Okay. Can't type here. There we go. Then I can come up here and I can either do it in the code view or I can try again, and I can click here at the very end and hit the return key. And that should by default add a paragraph tag. And it didn't. See it for whatever reason, it added just a line break. That's what BR stands for. That's not what I want. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, right after I got to get rid of that div tag again. Why it added that div tag, I don't know. I'm going to get rid of that. And I want to put in a paragraph tag. So again, you know, the quirkiness of web design prevails here. There's my closing tag, and then in between the opening and closing tag, I can go ahead and I can put insert sidebar content here. There we go. Okay. There we go. So the next step is to style it. And to style it, we need to make sure that we have our CSS Designer available. We're going to make sure that we have not all sources, but we have green style selected, global, and then we're going to add a selector to this. So the first selector that we want is going to be for the background color. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new selector. And this one needs to be dot sidebar 2. Just as we named the class before, sidebar 2. And that's it. That's all we need. That's very specific. Hit the return key twice. And we're set to go. We can come back here, make sure it's selected. Now we can come up here into the for the properties, and I can select the background color. And I want the background color here. Let's see if I already have it. It should be a lime green. And I believe it's this one right here. So I'm going to go ahead and assign that. We have, let's see if it's the same one. I got to check. No, it's not. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put the one that I want in here. It is CFC is the color that I want. So CFC, trying to follow the book, you know, exactly. And I'll go ahead and I'll add that to my, my color scheme here. If I have another one in my little palette. And now it's done correctly. Did I spell it right? Let's go ahead here. Yeah, see, I did something wrong. So I need to come back up and let's go back up here. Oh, you know why? Because I didn't spell it right up here. Again, if you're off one character, it doesn't work. So as soon as I have sidebar 2, I need to make sure that it's sidebar 2. Now it works. So again, if you're off one character, it's not going to work. So that's the first thing that we need to do. Just for the sidebar 2, something very specific, we can assign specific appearances to that, creating our selectors using sidebar 2. The next thing that we want to do is for the H2 tag to customize it because it's a little bit too large. Notice that it's larger, or it's actually the same size as what we have in our main content because the sides are considered less important in the structure of our page. They visually should be a little bit smaller. So we're going to go ahead and create a brand new one for that. So again, this is going to be dot sidebar 2 H2 dot sidebar, no space, 2 space H2. So any H2 tag that we have inside our sidebar 2 will have these custom properties. So what we want to do is first set our margins, top and bottom, our padding. So I'm going to come back over here and let's look at all the properties. And I'm going to scroll down. Do I have show set? I'm going to say show all. And under, there we go here. So under the margins, under top, I want it to drop down a little bit. I want it to be 10 pixels. So I'm going to put in 10 px. There we go. So that changes that. Then margin bottom, we're going to have 5 pixels. So I'll put in down here, 5 px. There we go. So that adds a little bit. It looks a little bit nicer that way. The padding, I'm going to use the shortcut because you'll notice that the type fits snugly all the way to the edge of the div. And we want it to be inset just a little bit so that when the viewer reads the content, their eye has a place to, a negative space to flow around it. So for the padding, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put here 0 pixels for top and bottom. So that's 0 pixels. So 0px. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a space. And I want for the margins on both the left and the right, I'm going to put 10 pixels. Okay. And notice how it pushed that in a little bit, but that's for the H2 tag. And we're going to do the same in a minute for the paragraph tag. But then in addition to that, I've changed the padding, but we're going to change the font size so that it's a little bit smaller. So I'm going to go back to T for type, and then under font size, right here, I'm going to change the percentages. And it should just disappear when I do that. And that's what it did. There we go. So I'm going to change this to 130%. 130. There we go. So you'll notice that the H2 tag in our sidebar 2 is a little bit smaller than our main article, which is smaller than the heading logo that we have here, which is also an H2 tag. That's what we want. We want the line spacing to be open up a little bit. So instead of line height, we're going to change that from the default, and we're going to use M's, and I'm going to put 1.4 M's in there. And again, how do I know what percentages to use? It's because the book is telling me, but then when you want it to look a little bit different, then you're going to have to play with those settings yourself. 1.4 M's. There we go. So that changes that. It opens it up a little bit, a little bit more line spacing. Okay. So the next thing that we want to do is we want to assign a custom appearance to our sidebar P tag. So we need to create a new selector for that. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the little plus sign here. Now I want that to be dot sidebar 2 space P, and hit the return key twice. Okay, so now I have my P tag that I'm ready to assign settings to. So the margins on the bottom, we're going to go ahead back over here to our layout, and margin on the bottom we want to be 5 pixels. Okay, we want the padding to be top and bottom 0, left and right we want it to be 10 pixels, the same as what we assigned the H2 tag. So I'm going to put 0 pixels, px, and then space, and then I want 10 pixels, px, and that should fix that. There you go. So now it pushes it in a little bit. You'll notice there's a little bit space. 10 pixels, I think, is sort of the minimum space that you need. Sometimes I like as much as maybe 20 pixels. I don't mind a lot of error around it, and that suits me just fine. And then the line height, we're going to use 1.3 M's for the text. So again, we want line height under the text here. Line height right here. And again, we're going to switch to M's. And I want it to be not as much space between lines, but more than what we, or less, more than the default, but less than what we had for the H2 tag. You'll see how it really tightens up with 0 M's. So I want 1.3, and that opens it up a little bit. Okay. That should change it just a little bit. There we go. So that opens it up a little bit. I'm going to make sure that everything is saved. So I'm going to go to File, Save All. Remember to choose Save All. because not only do you want the page saved, but you want your CSS style sheet to be saved as well. Now, one of the next things that we're going to do on here is that you'll notice that the left and right sides have, if we click on them, you'll notice that they are divided into 4 units. Okay, we did that at the onset. That, remember I said the total number of units that you have for a row is 12 units. So by default, it just divided it equally, 4, 4, and 4. Well, we want our main content to have a little bit more. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the left aside to 3 units. Okay, so I come in here and I click, and I put in 3. Notice how it shifted everything over. And now I'm going to come over to my main article here. Let's make sure if I can't select it, then I'm going to go ahead and either use the DOM to select it. And what I want to do now is I'm going to select, because remember, all of this has to add up to 12. There's 3, this is going to be 6 in the middle, and then we have 3 again. So 3 plus 3 is 6, plus the 6 for the main content will add up to 12. So, but watch what happens when I change that from 4 to 6 now. Notice how it pushed the right column below, because remember I said it has to add up to 12. Well, with the right column selected or still assigned to 4 units, it pushed it down because we had more than 12 units. So now what I can do is I can select in here, make sure that the right side is selected. I'm using the DOM. And instead of 4 units, I'm going to change it to 3 units as well. Let me undo. Something happened here. There we go. Let's try that again. 3. There we go. Now it all fits beautifully. So the left and the right side are subordinate to the main article, which is what we want. And then what we're going to do is we're going to affect some other information here as well. We're going to work with the last thing here. We're going to insert some HTML entities. So one of the things that we need to do next is we're going to assign to the footer. We haven't done anything to that. And then the last thing that we'll do, and we should have time today to finish all of this up, is to customize the text that we're using in here, and create our own font families, and change the heading to a custom web font. And then we should be done. Okie doke. So what I'm going to do down here is, since we don't have anything in the footer here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a footer tag, or footer class. So all I have to do is hit here under selector, I'm going to hit plus, and I'm just going to type footer. That's it. Hit the return key twice. And now we can go ahead and we can insert into that. And I can scroll down here if I want. And I think what I'm going to do is under change the background here. So let's change the background image to a background color and then a background gradient. So if I select here and then I select background, I'm going to use the same color that we used for the, let's see, I want to make sure that I have this right. I'm going to go ahead and just put the gradient in here. So I'll select the gradient, and I'm going to select the top color here. And this is going to be the 060. So I'm going to switch to hexadecimal. I want that to be 060. 060. There we go. And then the bottom one, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to make that one 0C0. So 0C0. 0C0. There we go. So it's kind of a bright green. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add that to my palette here. And I'm going to go ahead and add that to the gradient down at the bottom. So there you go. There's our gradient that's been added. I need to go ahead and remove some of this space here so we can see a little bit more. Now we need to add some content to that. And the only thing that we really need to add is a paragraph. So I'm going to go ahead and I guess I skipped this step. I'm going to go ahead and to the footer, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add some padding in here. So under the footer, we're going to add a padding of 1M. So I'm under the padding. I want 1M top and bottom, and I want 0 for the left and right. So I'm going to go ahead and in here, I'm just going to use the shorthand method, and I'm going to put 1M space, and then 0 pixels for left and right, 0px. There we go, and that should open it up just a little bit. Okay, and it does. It opens it up just a little bit. The default background color, I was right. I should have added that before. That should have been just a solid color in the event that you so that the end user has an old browser that they're unable to view the CSS correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and in here, I'm going to put in 090. There we go. And you're not going to see that, not unless you can't see it. And then the color for the type is going to be FFC. FFC is that light yellow that we used. So let's see what this one is. That's not it. It's this one here. So for the okay, so hold on here. I'm going to go ahead, and this is the background color. So I'm going to go back to the, before I change that, I'm changing things where I shouldn't. I want it to be 090 again. 090, there we go. So I'm going to click off of that. There we go. Now for the type, the color that we're going to use for that, that is the FFC. So that should be our light yellow here. And there we go. I had already added it to my palette. So now what I can do is inside here, okay, let's go down to our footer. And there we go. And I can go ahead, and if I have that selected, I can either do that by hand, or you'll notice that there's a cursor inserted in there. So let's see what I do if I go ahead and I type in there. And what I want to do is I'm going to put in here, and I got to look to see, it's going to be copyright, but I don't have the code for that yet. Copyright, we'll put 2021, and it's going to be, I have to look, Meridian Green Start. Okay, you can put your own name in here if you want. So let's go back in here. This should be a paragraph tag, Meridian Green Start. My computer is slow. I apologize. T-A-R-T. There we go. So what I need to do in here is I need to insert a paragraph tag. So there's our, so I'm going to go ahead right before the 2021, and I'm going to put in a paragraph tag before and after it. P And then at the very end of it, I need to put the closing tag. There we go. So now I have my paragraph tag. And then I need to also add inside here too, all rights reserved. Okay. So the next thing is one more thing that I want to do is I want to put the copyright symbol. And if we go back all the way back to when we were looking at HTML basics, and I'm going to look myself to tell you what page it's on. It should be on page 59. And for the copyright symbol, you put inside the code here. If I put in the ampersand, which is that little curly symbol there, and I put in copy semicolon, it adds the copyright symbol. So there we go. I'm going to go ahead and make sure all of this is saved too. So we're running really, really close. So save all. I just have one more thing that I want to do, and that's we're going to create, and we're done for the day. Okay. What a hassle here. So what we're going to do now is we're going to work with creating some global type styles. Okie doke. So what we're going to do now, and to the core of our HTML is a body tag. That's kind of the base tag. And it's going to affect all of the type in here unless we specify something other than that. So after our footer tag, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add a new selector. And this is just going to be the body tag, B-O-D-Y. Okay, hit the return key twice. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create our own custom font list. So to do that, we go to type, okay, and under font family, I'm going to click here. And we're going to create our own font family. Notice that they have a number of them here, starting at the top. We'll just look at that one. It's Arial, Narrow, Arial, Verdana, Sans Serif. To review, again, the reason that you have font families is because ideally you would want Arial Narrow to be your top choice. But if the end user's computer doesn't have it, then it will jump to Arial. If they don't have Arial, then it will switch to Verdana. If they don't have Verdana, it will go to their default sans serif typeface. Well, what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to manage fonts here. Okay. And what I want to do is I want to create a custom font stack. Now, to do so, what I need to do is I need to put in the fonts that they have instructed us to use. If I go back here to local web fonts, or actually the ones here, you'll notice that they're broken down into categories, which is really kind of nice. That if I click this one here, this top button, it will show me all of the fonts that will work for headlines. If I click on the bottom one as well, it will show me what fonts are available for both, that are usable for both headlines and body copy. In this particular case, the only font that works well for both is Sans Source Pro, or Source Sans Pro, okay, I should say. So I'm going to go ahead and select done. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that that is added. I'm going to go ahead to our font family here. And I'm going to manage fonts. And I'm going to switch to custom font stacks. So the first one that we want is going to be Sans Source Pro. So I'm just going to, rather than try to hunt for it, what was it, Source Sans Pro? Sans Source Pro. Sans Source Pro. Yeah, no, that's not right. It's Source Sans Pro. Come on, there you go. Source Sans Pro. That's the one that's selected. That's the one that I added. That's the one that I want. This is going to be the first one in my stack. So I click on that button there and it adds it. So now we need to pick the second, third, and fourth choice for these. So I'm going to come over here to create our new family. And I've got that one. I need to introduce the other ones, and I can't remember which ones they want. So we're going to start with Source Sans Pro. The next one is going to be Trebuchet. All right, so let's hunt for that one. There's Trebuchet. So that'll be the second one in my stack. The third one will be Verdana. So rather than hunt for it, I'm just going to put it in the search. Verdana for many years was my favorite. It was a typeface. It was designed specifically with the web in mind, and it works really nice. If they don't have Verdana, then we're going to go to Arial. Whoops. There we go. So I'll add that to my stack. Okay. Then we're going to go to, what's the next one after that? Helvetica. I'll add that to my stack. And then the last one will be the generic sans serif. And I'll add that to the stack. Okay, so now I'm done. I've created a brand new stack. Now I come back up to my font family and I look, and you can see here's the new stack that I just created. So I'm going to select that to the body, and you should notice that all of the type has changed now. Now you'll notice that it's gone to like a light gray. So the color of it, I need to specify, and we're going to switch to black to make sure that that's correct. So I'll use black. Oh, not blue, I want black. There we go. Make sure that that appears. Come back over. Come on. Changed it, but not for the better. So why can't I come back here? Let's go back in with a body tag. No. It should remain black. It shouldn't have changed. So again, my apologies. Let's check back in here and see why that isn't being applied. How about if I remove it altogether? Let's try that again. Let me just remove it and see what happens. Okay, well, I'm going to leave it for the moment. And I'm going to change the default font size to 14 point. So let's check here to check some other things to make sure that I'm adding this right. So we've done that. So font size property for that is going to be 14 point. So I'm going to come back in here. (14 pixels, I should say, not point. 14px. And that will change the size a little bit. The font weight, and I don't remember whether we were supposed to change that, but I don't know that 200 is right. Let's try 400. See if that affects it. There we go. That was the problem. It was too light, so I had to change the font weight. By default, it was 200. But notice that the color, it looks a little bit brighter, a little bit bolder now. So we're in good shape. Now, this body tag, as I said, affects everything until we specify otherwise. The next thing that we're going to do, okay, in our main row, article H1, the one that we already created, or did we create one yet? I guess we didn't, because we wanted to affect just H1 tag inside here. Now this is going to be changed from an H2 to an H1 tag. So I can do that now. Okay. So make sure that we have this right. I'm checking because I'm make sure that I don't mess anything up. So presently this is an H2 tag, but we're going to change it to an H1 tag. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new selector. And I want it to be main. Oops, can't spell. Dot row, main dot row space article H1. So any H1 tag located in an article that's in our main.row will be affected by this. Okay. So I'm going to come back in here and I'm going to select this H2 tag. And I'm going to look in the code and you'll notice that it says that it's H2. I'm just going to change it to an H1. So that it will be affected accordingly. So we come back over here. Now let's go ahead and let's change it. We're going to change the margin top to 0. So remember, we have to put that 0 in there. And then the margin bottom is going to be 15 pixels. So I'm just going to do it shorthand. 0 pixels and 15 pixels. And that should change that a little bit. There we go. No, I didn't want that. No. So notice that it put it left and right. I goofed. I don't want that. I'm going to remove that. I goofed. So I'm going to put, instead of shorthand, I'm going to put in 0 top. There you go. And 15 bottom. There. And that pushes everything down just a little bit. There we go. Now what we're going to do is we're going to add a font family to this. And you'll notice that after we publish this, that because we didn't add anything other than Padua 1, that sometimes it won't show up because the end user will not have that font in there. So under type here, under font family, I'm going to go ahead and manage fonts. And I want to make sure that if I look under here, just for headlines, okay, and what I can do is under the search, I'm going to put in Padua 1. There's Padua 1 right here. Padua, P-A-D, Padua. Isn't it Padua or Padua? Hold on here. Padua. Sorry, not Padua. Padua. 1. Why isn't that showing up? Padua. Maybe I need to put the capital letter in. Oh, I've already added it. That's why. And if I come back here and I go into the font family, you can see that I already added that, Padua 1. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. Okay. Then the next step, if I come back over here, you'll notice that now the H1 tag is changed. And I want the font size to be 100%. So we're going to use a percentage in here. We want it to be 100. And when that happens, when it disappears, you want that to happen. There we go. No, I'm sorry, 300%. It seemed a little bit small, huh? 300%. There we go. That's a good size. And then the line height to be 1M. So I need to switch to M's. I want it to be 1M. Oh, come on. One EM. There we go. Ta-da. What else do we need to do here? There's a few other little things. So that was for my H1. In green styles, main.row aside. So let's go back to main.row aside here. We're going to change the font size to that a little bit. We're going to make it a little bit smaller. So we're going to use a percentage. These are all these little touch-up things that they want us to do. So I'm going to put in 95%. There we go. So it's just a little bit smaller. Let's see, for the block quote, we're going to use, and the block quote, what we want to do, main row aside block quote, we're going to change the font size of that a little bit. And we want it to be 100%. So again, a little bit of touch up here. Font size, I don't want medium. We want it to be a percentage. And we're going to make it 100%. 100%. Should bring it back. Come on. Oh, somehow I changed the main row block quote. Font size, 100%. Why isn't it changing back? It disappeared. Main.row aside block quote. Let me undo, see what I did wrong. Let's bring it back. There we go. So right now it has font size medium. Let's try again to use percentage. And that should disappear. There we go. Let's put in 100%. 100%. And it should come back. And it's not. What am I doing wrong? What am I doing wrong? Let me undo. I'm going to leave it alone for a moment. I'm going to leave it alone because it shows that it's affecting it correctly, but it's not working properly. So sometimes that, these things happen. Now, right now, if you'll notice to the left, and I kind of like this myself, there is a left border to this, but we could put border none, and that's what they prefer us to use. So let me switch to the borders and see how if that switches here. So let's go to border, and we're going to switch to border style none, and that little bar there will disappear. It should disappear. It did. So let me go back again. This really bugs me when that happens. I'm going to switch to the type. I'm going to switch to the font size, and I'm going to go to percentage, and that should disappear. And I'm going to put in 100%. And it's not coming back. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I will play with it rather than have you go through the anxiety and the stress and of watching me go through all of that. But I'm going to go ahead and make sure that everything is saved. File, save all. And we are essentially done. So I'm updating everything. I've updated the pages, I've closed everything, and we're good to go. So now we're ready to move on with lesson 7. So lesson 7, what we want to do is we're going to customize this and add media queries so that when it shrinks all the way down for a smartphone, that it will look a little bit better. You'll notice that the headline here wraps to 2 lines. We don't want that. You'll notice that in the header itself, that the paragraph tag wraps to 2 lines. We don't want that. You'll notice that the fern is a little bit too large. We don't want that. So we're going to create our own little media query to make sure that everything reduces properly. Also, when we shrink it down a little bit, we're going to go like to a tablet. Instead of leaving it at 3 columns, we're going to go to 2 columns. So there's a few things that need to be changed by adding a media query. And then when we're done with lesson 7, we're at a really important point in our lessons, and I will show everybody how to publish that, and then you'll get your grade for that. Okay. So are there any questions from you guys, aside from the fact that I can't get the quotation to work here with a different font size? So that should be main.row aside block quote, and that's what I selected, main.row aside block quote. And when I click on it, that's what's highlighting it. By selecting the font size of 100%, it's just not showing up. And I don't know why. I don't know why. I'm going to have to look at that. It looks fine right now, but you know, it's a good size, but I'm just trying to follow the lessons in the book the way they've done it. So no, you will not upload 1 through 6, Andy. You will only publish lesson 7, and that's it. And I will assume that you have done lessons 1 through 6. And typically, it's the case that if you haven't done lessons 1 through 6, you're not going to understand lesson 7. And when I ask you to publish it, it won't work. So it's sort of an all or nothing. And then when we finish lesson 11 or 12, I will have you publish that. And I'll assume that you've done lessons 8, 9, 10, and 11. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? So you just make sure that you save them on your computer. And then when we do lesson 7, that will be, again, we're going to switch to a new root folder. And when you finish it, you will publish it. Okay. So the lessons in this book are sort of a building process, you know, one builds upon another. And as we do that, it really makes no sense to publish one and then the next and then the next, at least to me. Okay. So we're done for today. I will stop recording in a few moments, and I'm going to try to fix that last feature that I was trying to work on here for the block quote. Maybe it is just for the block quote. No, I don't know. I'm not going to bore you with it, but I'll figure it out. Then we'll talk about it on Tuesday before we move ahead. Okay. So that's it for today. I'm going to say goodbye, and I presume you guys are going to leave. Some of you may already have. And then that'll be it for today. That's it, unless you have questions for me. I'll be happy to answer any others. Okay, so I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to stop recording